Hello guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. Today I'm going to tell you a story on how I got my Yamaha D350 and that too free. I don't have to tell you about the Yamaha D350. What can I say about it? It's the quintessential two-stroke bike that one must own. I was not that fortunate to own a bike during my college days. Those were the days when two strokes were kind of dying. New regulations made it mandatory for the manufacturers to switch from gas guzzling mad two-stroke bikes to four-stroke bikes. Fast forward to 2010, I got my first two-stroke bike. This was a very special bike for me. This was the very bike which I had always dreamed of. This was a 1989 Yamaha RX100, one of the few original Japanese imports. While restoring this bike, I and my friend, both of us really bonded well. We both restored this bike and his bike. His bike being a Yamaha RX135 Tiger, which he bought new from the showroom. Well, more on those bikes later in a future episode. This is all about how we got the Yamaha D350 free and how we restored it. Anyways, while restoring both mine and my friend's bike, both of us, were pretty quick in restoring those because parts were available, we got everything. These restorations didn't take much. Those bikes were restored like in a month. After restoring both of those bikes, we kind of thought, we bonded really well, so this is a time that, we go ahead and start looking for new projects. And we thought of buying a basket case and restoring it to glory. But the problem with Kerala is unrestored bikes were about 2,000 to 5,000 cheaper than fully restored ones. That definitely didn't make a business sense. So one fine day we were chit-chatting and we decided why not restore the big daddy of the Indian two-stroke bikes. So that is when we thought of looking for an RD350. That officially started with our recon mission. My friend spoke to his two-stroke buddies and I spoke to mine. In a day's time, I was standing in front of a workshop which had the single largest collection of RD350s under one roof. There was an old police auction bike from Uttar Pradesh which was in our budget. This was a completely dismantled bike, and for newbies like us, it was quite a task. The biggest blow came to us in terms of the paperwork. It didn't have any to start with. So I started chasing my friend from Mumbai, who is from UP originally, in a faint hope that, he might be able to help, who also had the biggest collection of RDs that I know of. At one point in time, I remember he had 3 bikes, all 3 in different states. 2 were running, 1 was dismantled. So I called him to find out more about the possibility of getting those duplicate documents, which I highly doubted by this time. So that turned out to be a dead end. During my conversations, I casually asked him if he is willing to let go one of his bikes. He was rather polite in replying, I asked him how many does he have now. He was a closed book. He didn't tell me much. So we thought, okay, we'll not disturb him much. But then, we had another call with him wherein he informed me that, upon probing him more, he informed me that one of his bikes was stolen. So I tried probing him further, and then, I found out that the bike which he said was stolen was actually not stolen. The bike was kept at one of his apartments, which he had left, about a decade ago. And he kind of forgot about the bike. He never went back to the apartment. He used to rent out that apartment. So I asked him if he is willing to sell it if it's still there. This was a very faint hope that I had, that that might be there, and he might say okay, he might sell it. But his reply kind of blew me off. He said that if the bike is there, and I quote, if the bike is still there, you can have it. This was the single greatest things I've heard in my life, and I spent no time in informing my friend, who was all over the moon hearing this. After hanging up his call immediately, I called a friend in Delhi. I was not getting very positive vibes from him because, obviously this place being about 40-45 kilometers away from where he, stays. So it was kind of a very long stretch, So those days my parents also used to stay in Delhi, and, I was in no mood to ask them to go and check if the bike is still there. My parents were old. It was difficult for them as well. So, prospects of getting it was getting slim. So I, anyways, sent my friend the location of the bike and forgot about the whole thing. I was not very positive that he might go. But then following Sunday, I get an early morning call from him. He's like, dude, I've sent you some pics. Is it the same bike? I could not control my excitement. I was like, yes, this is it. He also told me getting this bike without any paperwork would be, so what was the next move? So I called my friend, the guy in Mumbai who owned the bike. I asked him if he still has the paperwork. So he said he needs some time to check, and I was like, okay, again, I was all excited, but the prospects of him having the paperwork in Mumbai was pretty slim. So, we kind of started looking for other bikes, but nothing was striking a chord, And then out of the blue, my friend from Mumbai calls me, and he said, you know what, I have the paperwork. It's still with me. Can I have your address so that I can ship it to you? I was like, I could not believe my ears. Like, this was something that, I never expected to happen. So I immediately gave him my address, hung up the phone, called up my parents and asked them to go there. Being elderly, they have an advantage. They do not look like somebody who came to steal the bike. So they went with the paperwork, and then, they went and spoke to the association saying that, we wanted to take the bike out. That was the most difficult thing actually. The association was run by a bunch of stooges. They wanted a lot of money for the bike, basically for parking the bike for long. Finally, we ended up paying them some money, which I would not like to disclose at the moment. However, the bike was on its way on a truck to Kerala. The bike arrived to my home on a weekday, and I couldn't handle the excitement. I took a leave saying I called in sick. So it arrived in the evening. It had dust from the entire journey throughout India. It was not packed that well, so there was a big dent on the petrol tank as well. But it was not something that was worth ruling at that time. But what we did is, we immediately knew that we have found a diamond in the rough. So my free bike was here. We took almost 2 months restoring it, and finally it was on the road. And the sound it makes is nothing I have ever heard in my life. The bike is an instant conversation starter. People have never seen a white collar techie getting his hands dirty, restoring a bike himself. People are always curious on what I do for a living. Once they hear that this was restored by myself in my garage. I've actually made a lot of friends through this bike. Got invited to a lot of events, and I have been in places with this bike. This bike though is almost as old as me, still turns a lot of heads. Nothing comes close to it even after 34 years that it has spent on the Indian roads. This is truly the most amazing bike that I have ever owned, and this would be the most amazing Indian bike for years to come. Thank you.